And it is that while the lethality of their power is greater than ever, their capacity to impose control over the politically awakened masses of the world is at a historical low. Namely, in earlier times, it was easier to control 1 million people. Literally, it was easier to control 1 million people than physically to kill 1 million people. Today, it is infinitely easier to kill 1 million people than to control 1 million people.
The smoke in the air of our Concord bridges and Pearl Harbors is always smelled first by the farmers who come from their simple homes to find the fire and fight.
If you embark on instituting a society where government protects you from yourself, you're in big trouble, and that's what they're doing. That's all government is force. I mean, do you have a choice about paying Medicare taxes? This government uses force to mold behavior or mold the economy. They've overstepped the bounds, and they violated the whole concept of our revolution and our Constitution.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Freedom Link program. First Wednesday night that we've done here so far on the new schedule, the new 9 o'clock schedule on the Freedom Link. Joe Joseph, Tim Watts, and John King here tonight. Joe will be joining us shortly. So for right now, it's just John and I want to mention up front just maybe a couple of notes that on the Orion Talk Radio website, I know we had a story there for a day or two that had a lot of hyperlinks in it. It talked about the Federal Reserve secrecy over the bailouts. I just want to let everybody know that those hyperlinks do work now. For some strange reason, I seem to have 3 websites go down all of a sudden once again. John, that's like the 5th time I've been hacked. It's getting really annoying. But
well, we must be getting close to the truth, Tim.
Hey, you know, something's going on. When they take you down 5 times, there's got to be something there that obviously is, a little thorn in the lion's paw there, so to speak. But
anyway, you can't keep a good man down.
Oh, yeah, well, they try. So anyway, folks, check it out on the Orion Talk Radio website, oriontalkradio.com, all updated now. And apologies for those links being down. But, hey, what can you do when the powers that be are busting you in the nads? So we're going to be talking tonight about what's going on in the United States regarding all around the world, regarding the descending police state that's coming down on us. And specifically, John, the digging in of the governments around the world and also the ultra-wealthy. You know, that show that Jesse Ventura did on conspiracy theory a while back on the wealthy digging in down in the Ozarks. At least that was what they were thinking. You know, that's kind of a very interesting story when you see what's going on down there. And you realize these people are preparing for something. I mean, for the last year, we've seen so many things that come down on us with the police state. It's obvious they're preparing. You know, it's just the question is, and this is what we're going to try to tackle tonight, folks, what is it that they're getting ready for?
What is it indeed, my friend?
Oh, look at who jumps in here. It's Joey.
Oh. Tim, you didn't lock the door.
What
You know, I tried.
I have a harrowing tale, yes. My transmission blew up on the way home.
Oh, no.
And it took me a little while to get there, yeah. So this is great. So Uncle Joe is vehicle-less until I am able to get at least one vehicle working.
Wow, that sucks.
But, it does. It absolutely sucks. I mean, you have no idea. But, you know, it's funny. I've got a Dodge Grand Caravan. Now, some people may think that, you know, Dodges suck or the Chrysler products suck. If there's one thing they made well, it's a minivan. And I know the transmission blew up. Well, it's got 235,000 miles on it, so it was bound to happen sometime. But the fact of the matter is that van's got me home every single time. Even when it's broken, it still manages to get me home. So, it is. It is amazing. But like I said, I'm going to be working hard over the next 2 or 3 days to try and get some some scratch together to fix my poor vehicles. But anyway, so you know, we're talking about the police state and why it's being put in place so rapidly, why they're preparing, or what it looks to be preparing. You know, Timmy, you showed me that you hooked me up to Jesse Ventura episode where they talk about the deep underground bases.
Yeah, the Ozarks episode.
The Ozarks, right, exactly. And all I have to say, folks, is when you look at what's going on in the Ozarks and the facilities that are being built, the mansions that are being built, you have to say, what in God's green earth are they preparing for? It just, of course, we could say so many different things, especially in the tinfoil hat community, right, John? I mean, what have we seen over the years come and go as, the tinfoil hat rumor of the week? I mean, we had, Elenin? Elenin was going to destroy us, right?
Yeah, we've had asteroids, let's see, chemtrails are going to poison us from above.
Well, now that much may be true. They could very well do that. That's not out of the realm of possibility.
I'm inclined to think that the zombie apocalypse may be real.
It's funny how they use that language all the time, isn't it?
Yeah.
One thing I always find solace in certain things. When
whiskey.
Outside of a good single malt scotch.
Yeah.
No. But what I'm talking about, in order to see what's really going on and get down to the crux of it, I know a lot of people may not like what I'm about to tell you, but I'm going to tell you anyway. You have to have a spiritual grounding. You have to have it. There's no other way around it to see through the muck and see the actual forces that we're dealing with here. I think about Psalms 23:4. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. And I'll tell you what, I don't fear it. I don't fear what's coming. I don't think that it's going to be some sort of cataclysm. I don't buy into the December 21st, 2012 hype. Mm-hmm. But what I do buy into, what I do understand, is that these greedy banksters and these greedy families that have robbed us blind for over the course of time. I mean, how far back do they go, Tim and John? I mean, they go back a long way.
Joe, where did you read that from again? Because mine's a little different. Mine says, as I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for thy Glock is with me.
Oh, the Glock is with me. Well, it's always handy to have that as well, my friend. Don't get me wrong, but I guess what I'm trying to say is this, that we should not fear these things. You have to stand up and fight these powers. They are looting us blind. Angela, my wife Ann, she sent me a article tonight, and of course I don't have it now. It's not in my window. But basically what it said is, as long as the Federal Reserve continues to have an easy monetary policy, meaning they're monetizing the debt, as long as they're doing that, then we need to be as risky as possible. We need to leave no stone unturned.
Joe, I read something today, and I'm not a high finance analyst, but from what I understand, everything has an opposite, and derivatives are the opposite of inflation. And from what I read this morning, they're not quite sure how much in derivatives is actually out there. They're estimating between $600 trillion to $1.5 quadrillion, and it's in a bubble. And what do bubbles do? Bubbles are made to burst. And they're thinking that when that derivative bubble bursts, it's going to be hell on earth worldwide. But so maybe that's why the globalists are digging in.
And that could be. But did you just hear what you just said? The globalists, they're digging in, right? And I guess where I'm trying to go with this is simply this. This has all been foretold. Many years ago, there are many ancient texts that describe these days. And I want people to understand what it is I'm saying, because this is extremely serious. You know, I gave Psalm 23:4 for a reason. You should not fear these people. Yes. Can they imprison you indefinitely without due process? Yes. Can they black bag you in the dead of night? Yes. Did they GPS your front door to conveniently for, drone strikes or whatever? Yes. Could they raid you? Yes. The fact of the matter is, they can do it regardless if you've done anything wrong or not.
Yep.
And you cannot fear death. You cannot fear the recourse from defending your God-given rights.
No,
And
you're right, Joe.
And the only way that this can happen, the only way that we can get out of this is for people to step up. I mean, it's really that simple. Hello.
You have to empower yourself too, folks. I mean, what Joe is talking about, it's absolutely right on. And, it gives you more power when you're not afraid, because that's obviously where they get their power, is from your fear. So if you don't have fear, they have no power over you, okay?
Right.
They might be able to do certain things to you, but the thing you want to do is, and this is what Naomi Klein talks about in her film, The Shock Doctrine, if you have prepared yourself for what may happen, there cannot be shock. You will not be induced into a state of shock, because you've already thought about it. You've already calculated all the possible ramifications, and you're ready for it. And so that's kind of some of the stuff that I think most folks really need to do right now. Kind of think about some of the things that might happen, and be prepared for those. Don't think about just little easy things. Think about the extreme, because we are faced with the extreme right now. And if you're ready for it mentally, you won't go into a state of shock like this entire nation and the world did after 9/11.
But I'm gonna say something here, and of course, this may be a little controversial to everybody. And again, I don't care, because this is the truth of the matter. Is not only should you be physically prepared and mentally prepared, but you have to be spiritually prepared, because what is coming down the pipe, you will not be able to handle by yourself. I promise you. The Bible talks about the all of this digging underground and everything like that. Revelation 6:15, and the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman, and every freeman hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us, and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. I'm telling you right now.
Angry people
that's
that
right.
Their heads need to come off.
That's right. And that's what the wrath of the Lamb is people are going to be at a point of where they cannot handle it anymore. That they're backed into the corner, and they're going to be calling for their heads.
Righteous indignation.
And that's right, righteous indignation. And I'm telling you, folks, you need to have spiritual grounding. It has to be there, because what we know now, you don't even understand what's coming down the pipe. No one does. I don't even understand it.
It's a good point, Joe. I know, we've got a lot of atheists in the world and stuff like that, and I can't begrudge them, for their own belief.
No, and that's their, and that of course is right, and that's their own. That's their own choice, right?
But I tell you what, there's a lot of comfort to having some sort of, as you said, solace, in the fact that there is, some divine intervention out there, that there is, another plan for this earth other than just one and done, like they try to tell us.
No, absolutely.
And then you got John King that takes solace in his rabbit's foot.
And the rabbit's foot in the Merlin hat.
And the Glock.
And the Glock. But hey, there's great solace to be had in the Glock.
Yeah.
And but I guess my point is simply this, folks. We're a lot closer than you think. And I think I brought this up the other night. I saw a fabulous movie. If you ever get the opportunity, watch it. It's called Margin Call. It really puts things in perspective as far as where the banking industry sits and what they're doing and how they're going about doing it. They are looting us blind and putting it on our backs. We signed on. The American government has signed on to cover these a fairly large portion of these derivatives. There's no way we can cover it. No way, Tim.
No, and it's like John said, and he's right about the number because, that's something that I dug up and when I did my engineered collapse story. But it's $1.2 quadrillion. And, derivatives floating out there. I mean, wrap your head around a quadrillion. For crying out loud, they talk about paying off $16 trillion and we can't pay that off. Well, a quadrillion, I think, isn't that like 1,000 times a trillion?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you can't pay off $16 trillion. There ain't no way you're paying off.
Yeah, it's a serious issue. Now, of course, you know what we could do. And I've proposed this in the past, and I've heard a lot of people propose this in the past. Just take out the pencil eraser and erase it. Just make it go away. Make it go away.
Have a jubilee?
Well, we could do that. Yeah. And here's the thing. Now, this is the fallout from that. You of course, you risk war. Well, we've already got that just about everywhere you turn. But secondly, you'd have to live within your means, meaning that everything would have to be produced here because people wouldn't – they'd be more apt not to give the United States credit should we default. Mm. But our country has vast natural resources. Plus, we haven't even tapped into free energy.
We haven't even tapped our oil either.
But even so – I mean, think about this. Think about all the work that Tesla did over 100 years ago. You're telling me that we can't use and utilize that technology? Are you kidding? No, it's only because of the special interests like the oil lobby and the tire lobby and things like that. Why do you think we don't have hover cars now? Yeah. I mean, really? We've had tires now since the late 1800s.
Does kind of make you wonder, doesn't it?
It does. How come Edison batteries never took to, why? Because they never go bad. Well, that makes sense. So the battery industry couldn't possibly sell you a product like that now, could they?
Yeah, the battery that Edison invented is still going strong even today.
That's right. So, I mean, the technology's out there for us to be energy independent. They just don't want us to be energy independent because if they have us under their thumb, if we're paying exorbitant prices for energy costs, whether it be heating oil or gasoline or even the food you eat or the clothes you wear, then you're going to have issues and you're going to be subservient to them and you're going to be looking for a handout. A lot of people do. You become subservient to the powers that be. Just today, on Drudge Report, headline, Detroit City Councilwoman says, "We got you in, now bail us out." Really? That's what you're looking for? Now, is there historical precedent to that? Absolutely. In 1975, the city of New York City, was given a $2 billion line of credit by the federal government to prevent its economy and its local government from collapsing.
Yep.
In Detroit, in the Carter administration, towards the tail end, 1979, the mayor of Detroit goes to the White House and begs Jimmy Carter for help, and they got help.
I think didn't Cleveland go bankrupt around that time too? Seems like we had quite a few cities, or at least a few that went, belly up back at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. But the fact remains, folks, that you cannot be afraid to stand up for what's right. And don't think that they won't come and they'll try to get you with fear. They even may try to arrest you. Heck, you may end up losing your life in the whole thing. But let me tell you something. There is nothing to fear. Nothing to fear. John King, go ahead.
Joe, you were asking a little bit ago about the tinfoil hat community and all the things that have come and gone since then, and I joked around a little bit about the real zombie apocalypse, but we got one that's coming up right now in just a few weeks. It's the Mayan prophecy for December 21st. What about all those sheeple out there that actually believe that went out and overspent for Christmas? Now, you got their credit cards that are going to be coming due right around March, April, and they'll be in default right around May, June. What happens when all those overspent, bloated credit debt from all this Black Friday Christmas shopping comes due and they can't pay it and it goes into default in June, and we're already in a credit bubble now?
I don't know. Here's a very interesting article right here. This is silverdoctors.com, and I think they're mirroring this this article. But it goes on to say, it says, according to J.P. Morgan, who would know since as a primary dealer they flip treasury takedowns to the Fed roughly 30 minutes after issuance for a handsome profit. The Federal Reserve is currently absorbing approximately 90% of new dollar-denominated fixed income assets. Go back and reread that last sentence. That's right. Even the financial MSN, the mainstream media, is now admitting that the Fed is now nearly entirely monetizing the U.S. deficit outright. What does that mean? Folks, what that means is we are doing what Germany did during, after the First World War, where you had the Weimar province with people with wheelbarrows full of money. They are totally monetizing our own debt. What does that mean? That means that there's no interest in people buying the debt. And if there is, it's very tepid. So if nobody's going to buy it, we have to print our way out of it. And when you print your way out of it, the medicine becomes the poison.
Yep, hyperinflation.
This is why, and the article continues, it says, this is why QE4 will be announced next Wednesday, which has already been fully priced in thanks to multiple leaks from the Chicago Fed's Evans and as well as Bernanke last week, and why the Fed will ramp up outright purchases to $85 billion a month. That's $1.2 trillion a year when Operation Twist ends. There are simply no remaining buyers of U.S. debt. Those who fail to see where this is headed may wish to acquire a copy of When Money Dies to grasp how situations played out in Weimar Germany. I mean, I can't say it any more cut and dry. As a matter of fact, when we come back, we're going to have the King's Court. And then we're also going to get into a little bit more. What does this all mean and what can we expect in the year 2013? Yes, folks, we'll be here, but it ain't going to be pretty. We'll be right back after these messages, so don't go away. Welcome back, folks. Don't forget the email address is thefreedomlink@centurylink.net. That's thefreedomlink@centurylink.net. Joe Joseph here, along with Tim Watts and John King. We're discussing this, the stark realities of the world we live in. And in so doing, I would like to kind of change gears for a second, kick it into overdrive, and call the King's Court into session. John, take it away.
When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another and assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to be the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But now we're going to be taxed to live. That's right. If you want to live, you have to pay a tax. When does it all stop? Obamacare has now just released taxes on the medical devices. Now, you may not even have to pay the tax directly, but the cost is going to be passed on to you. However, you still have to pay the tax. Think on things such as a pacemaker, that will be taxed. God forbid you should need a pacemaker to live, as you will pay the tax to the government and pay that government fee to breathe air. Don't believe me? Google IRS finalizes new tax for medical devices in healthcare law. It's a Reuters article. My only consolidation in all this? Robo Cheney will be taxed hard. Real hard. Hasta la vista, baby. Court adjourned.
Very nice. You know, there's a an old friend on YouTube. He's called Bumper Tapper. He used to be Poseidon. I can't remember what his name was there, but Bumper Tapper for sure. Jack's his name. And let me tell you something. He did this video, when Kennedy died? Ted Kennedy. And he said it was Ted Kennedy Go to Hell. Goes to Hell. And it was probably one of the most entertaining videos I ever saw. And he promised me that when Dick Cheney dies, he's going to do a part 2. Dick Cheney Goes to Hell. So, with that said, I wait with bated breath. As I hope that little machine, that little mechanical heart that he's got, is gives out. Maybe the batteries run out. Maybe it short circuits.
When Dick Cheney goes to hell, he will be home again.
I'm sure he will. He's probably cold up here.
Dad,
probably used to the flames.
Yeah. See, if God could have a son named Jesus on the earth, maybe perhaps the devil sent his son too.
Yes, the devil could have his son too. His name is Dick Cheney. Yes, could very well be.
How ironic that he lives up to his name, Dick.
Yeah, for real. Now, hey, getting back to this the focus on the corruption and just how close we are. Okay, CNBC reports today. Take risks while the Fed fuels markets, says Barclays. Now, Barclays, of course, was at the heart of the Libor scandal. You know, fixing the Libor rates and all that stuff. Well, it says the environment for risk-taking continues to be favorable as long as the Federal Reserve keeps on pumping money in. Larry Cantor, managing director and head of research at Barclays, told CNBC. Cantor says the latest Fed round of stimulus, QE3, which takes the Fed's money creation past the $3 trillion level since it began the quantitative easing process in 2008, provided downside protection for investors. Quote, the Fed can't cut interest rates anymore. This quantitative easing is extraordinary. This QE3 is open-ended. What the Fed is saying is that it will keep on buying until the labor market starts improving at a faster rate. He told Europe's Squawk Box on Wednesday, advising investors to take a more constructive position towards risk going into 2013. Why, yes, continue to pump your money to us. We want to loot and plunder you as much as we possibly can. And then guess what? Then we're going to take all of that money. We're going to buy up as many tangible assets as we can. And then the whole thing's going to come crashing down because we cannot keep the farce up any longer. And that's when we will run, my friends. We will run to our caves and we will run to our little castles in the Ozarks. And your children will wake up homeless and starving.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to ask yourself the simple question. Do you want it to get that far? Do we have to learn the hard way every single freaking time? I hope not. I know people in New York City are learning the hard way about government corruption. As New York City hits Sandy victims with failure to maintain property citations. I mean, Bloomberg should be freaking hung. And I'm not one to judge. But good grief, man. I mean, are you serious? You have people that are legitimately suffering. You're talking people that didn't have power for 2 weeks.
Yep.
2 weeks. They couldn't buy food. They couldn't get around. You know, that Popeye had a great guest on a couple of weeks ago. You know, the pizza owner and that would, you know, you donate $8 or whatever, and he'd have a pie and a soda waiting for people in need. And, of course, that was great. But you have to understand. This is just egregious. This is absolutely egregious. To try and capitalize on people's misfortune? Really? A tree fell on my house. You're telling me that I have to pay a citation because a tree fell on my house? And oh, by the way, I didn't take care of it in a timely manner. Really? What's a timely manner to you?
Yeah. That's totally ridiculous. Totally ridiculous. And this comes from the, folks, let's, call a spade, the 10th wealthiest man in this country. You know, he could probably help a lot of people out in New York on his own if he was a very caring mayor. I'm just saying.
Absolutely. I mean, people were picking food out of the garbage, Tim.
The 10th wealthiest man in the U.S.
Yeah. And this is what happens, right? Why don't you, Bloomberg, take some money and clean up their yards for them? It probably would be a pittance to what you actually have. But God forbid you do that. You know, God forbid you show some compassion, some humanity, if you will. Embrace your humanity. Instead, you act like an unthinking freaking robot.
Yeah. That's kind of like a rifle button in your face. Yeah, it's a rifle butt in your face when you're already down on your knees.
Exactly.
It's just uncalled for. I mean, these people are down and out. They're hurting. And New York City actually has the stones to try to do something like this. I tell you what, you really lose your faith in government. And I really wish people would do that. You know, we've lost our faith in government with good reason. It's well-founded. You know, for those people out there that think government is the answer, you got to think about the people running our government.
And of course, you know, now there was another. Not only do we have this, let me get to this article, and then I'm gonna take it a step further. It says residents in one Queens neighborhood are crying foul after they were written up for failing to clean up the city's own mess. It is yet another new complication in the life after. Hey, guess what kind of storm it was, Timmy?
Oh yes, a superstorm.
Superstorm Sandy.
New term, superstorm. And, you know, notice how all the networks, everybody grabbed that new phrase. It wasn't like, oh, the big storm on CBS and all the wild storm on NBC or what. Every single, you know, news network, the entire media was in on superstorm. So that means it was a well-calculated, orchestrated effort to get, you know, to get this phrase, this terminology out into the public.
That's right. And so Roseanne and Joe Cavalier are still trying to clean up the mess after the hurricane. They had branches through their roof, busted front window, and to add insult to injury, they received a citation notice from the city. Now, it makes me angry, but it's also ridiculous, cried Roseanne Cavalier, as she told CBS 2 News. They got it on November 9th, cited with failure to maintain their property. But as they pointed out to CBS 2 on Tuesday night, it's a city tree that they're waiting for the city to remove.
Wow.
Yes. That's what's so freaking... Are you kidding me?
Yeah. You just want to beat your head in the wall. Or actually, you know, I'd like to take Bloomberg's head and beat it into the wall.
Tell me about it. John King, go ahead.
I thought I just heard drinking with Bob pop through the door. Are you kidding me?
Well, I learned from the best. What can I tell you? Anyway, to add insult to injury, on top of that, right? You got Occupy Sandy, right? They're there to respond to the disaster. Mm-hmm. They were handing out food and water and blankets and clothing and things like that, the things that people needed. And thank you, Popeye, by the way, for bringing this to my attention. And they got raided. And then they banned donating food to homeless shelters. I mean, what is wrong with people? How can you stand by and let this happen? I mean, everybody in New York, you should be marching on that city hall. This is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, seriously, if there wasn't a time for pitchforks and torches, I mean, when is it going to be? When are people going to get a spine and speak out? I mean, what is it going to take, Tim?
If you can't get off your butt and go down, you know, and picket in front of City Hall, for crying out loud, send an email, pick up your damn phone, you know, and if it's busy, you just keep calling, but don't just sit there and listen to this and do nothing. I mean, if you're in that affected area, if you're in the New York area, Joe's right. I would be marching on City Hall myself. That's an outrage all the way around. You know, people, they can recall politicians, right? I wonder if you can recall the mayor of New York at this point.
It would be nice. John King, what are your thoughts?
I'd say show up. It's far easier to tell somebody no over the telephone or be rude to them over the telephone. However, it's not as easy when you're staring your constituents right in the face.
Oh, yeah.
I'd say show up and walk in and demand some action. You
know, and of course it just goes to show you just how apostate things are in the world, how backwards things are, how we've had things taken away from us in society. You know, you've had God removed from the classrooms. You've had him removed from, the television with morality. Morality's just gone down the toilet. Hell, they have vibrator commercials during primetime television on TBS. Are you kidding me? You know?
No kidding.
Buy your Trojan vibrator. Yeah. It's unbelievable.
Joe, I haven't had TV for 2 years. I had no clue. No clue.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the direction we're going. And you have to ask yourself, even if you're the staunchest atheist in the world, and that's your own thing, if that's what you want to do, knock yourself out. That's why God gave us all free will. He doesn't want you to love him out of a sense of obligation. He wants you to love him because you love him. So if you don't love him, you don't have to deal with it. That's the beautiful thing about free will. But the fact remains that even the staunchest atheists, you got to sit back and say, what the hell is going on? You know, and you got to put a stop to it because, folks, this is our money. This is our well-being, and this is going to directly affect the future generations of this country and the world. Just think about our lives as we grew up as teenagers and prior generations, what our lives were like. And just look in the last 10 years, how things have just steadily degraded. You know, this is not going to fix itself. We have to fix it. You can stick your head in the sand, Tim, you know, as far as, just make the problem go away. This ain't going away. The only way it's going away is if it collapses. And if it collapses, let me tell you something. It's going to be a whole heck of a lot worse to deal with a collapse and a breakdown of society and God knows what else than to handle it now before it becomes an issue. And it's not too late. John King, go ahead.
Ezra, I'm inclined to think that maybe we should go over that fiscal cliff because all those people that are on those entitlements that don't deserve it. And I mean, yeah, we should have entitlements to take care of the ones who can't take care of themselves. But what about all those people that are sucking us dry that actually don't need them? So I'm thinking, you know what, if we do go over the fiscal cliff, maybe they'll have to get up off their asses and do something.
Now that may be like the first fiscal cliff. Now remember, we're only talking federal government right now. But let's take a look at municipalities. Let's take a look at states. The states and the municipalities are a whole lot worse off than the federal government because most states or most localities can't run budget deficits. They have to run balanced budgets. Oh, much like you and I. Now they can sell bonds to have debt for certain things, but their annual budget at the end of the year has to be balanced for the most part. And so states like California, Hawaii, and the city of New York are now boasting tax rates, top-tier tax rates, in excess of 50%. That's just in the states. That's not including federal tax.
Wow.
And, you know, you can't have an economy run anywhere type of, you can't have it run smoothly if you're constantly giving all your money to the government or if it's one for you, one for me, one for you, one for me. Well, if that's the case, then what incentive do I have to excel or succeed? You don't. All you're going to do is you're going to get more people that go on public assistance and don't do anything. Because why? Why? And so, of course, if people aren't paying taxes because they're on public assistance or because they don't make enough money, well, you're not fueling the coffers. So the Fed has to ratchet up the printing press some more, and it's only going to lead to more inflation. Now, there is an economist that accurately predicted the fall of Lehman Brothers and the 2008 catastrophe. seeing the bubble for what it was and calling it out. And I can't remember the name of this gentleman, and I apologize for it. I read it today, and I lost the article, but I can say this. His predictions for 2013 were unemployment up to 50%, a 90% drop in the stock market, and annual inflation of 100%.
50% unemployment?
Yes.
When the Great Depression, weren't we around 25 to 30% at the most?
Right. And the reason, and the reason why is because the fraud that's been perpetrated now, Tim, is so much more vast than it was in 1929.
Oh, yeah.
That there's no possible way a lot of these banks are going to be able to recover. They just won't, because their entire portfolio is based on fraud.
Mm.
You know, like I said, if you guys watch that movie, what's the name of that movie again, baby?
Margin call?
Margin call, yes. Margin call.
It was intentional.
It was intentional. They intentionally repackaged these mortgages and sold them as AAA commodities or assets on the market, knowing full well they were worthless. And they sold trillions of dollars of this stuff. And a lot of people got caught holding the bag.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Then what happened was they knew the gig was up. So instead, they just dumped them all on everybody. Almost kind of like, say, for example, China gets irritated at the United States and says, well, you know what? We're coming and calling on our debt. And they dump it all on us. All of a sudden, you have all those dollars just flood the marketplace. What happens? You have a collapse. You have rampant inflation, and fast, if that were to occur. Well, the same thing can happen in the market if you have a commodities dealer or trader just go and dump vast quantities of stuff, let alone the fact that they're worthless. So they did this because they knew that it was just a matter of time before the truth would come out, before people would see through the ruse. And that's what they're constantly afraid of. And, you know, they know that they're past the point of no return, that they can't turn back, that they've destroyed things to a point where, regardless of if we try and fix it now or not, it's going to be painful. It's going to stink to high heaven.
Well, they want it that way.
Of course they do.
It's clear they want it that way. I mean, and again, this whole thing has been carefully orchestrated, folks. I mean, you have to stop and think about it for a minute. This is no accident. And we have, you know, the bankers and stuff and financial officials that have, like I say, master's degrees and, you know, very smart at what they do. You think they didn't see this derivatives time bomb rolling up on us? Seriously?
And hence
you're missing that, huh?
Well, and hence the reason for the police state, Tim.
Sure.
Why do you think they need such a vast police state? Because the bankers know that they can't keep this going on forever, and they need that police state in place to keep us under control and in a constant state of fear. And that's all it's about. That's why on Sunday we talked about the phony war on terror. It's phony. And you want to know the truth, folks? Let me tell you something, because as we close the broadcast out, the Bible speaks of this too. And it says in Luke 11:19 or 11:9 and Matthew 7:7, they both say the same thing. Imagine that. It says, ask and it shall be given to you. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you. That's not just the Bible. That's everything. Do you want to know the truth? Then you have to seek it. You have to look for it. You have to look under the rocks, and you have to be prepared to see the things that you don't want to see.
Yep.
Cops better smarten up.
And there's a lot out there you don't want to see, but, you know, you won't find it unless you look, folks.
And you know what? Police officers, active duty military out there, you have to see through the ruse, because if you think for a second that you're immune to this, you're sadly mistaken.
Yeah.
You're sadly mistaken.
They don't care any more about them than they do about us.
Absolutely right. They don't care any more about the police than they do about us or anybody.
Really dangerous
That's right.
position.
And the people that stand in the way of the heads that are going to have to roll when the citizens wake up, folks, and the angry mobs, it's going to be a very, very dangerous position. Folks, that's the broadcast for tonight. Stay tuned for Down the Rabbit Hole with Popeye. And we'll pick up again tomorrow night.
Hey, a special
9
guest
p.m.
tonight's Gwen.
Yes. Well, folks, have a good evening. Stay tuned for Down the Rabbit Hole.
DependableVoice.com, the total solution, one-stop shop for your business telecommunications needs. Nationwide business class telecommunications services, providing voice and data, voice over internet, and hosted PBX. Dependable Voice is now offering the first month free for any voice over internet and hosted PBX services. Save up to 50% on your current phone bill and save thousands of dollars with no need to purchase PBX hardware. Hosted PBX and voice over internet services include free local and long-distance calling to the U.S., Canada, and Caribbean. Email to voicemail, follow me services, multiple visual call reports, dynamic auto attendant, advanced ACD and call queue, unified voice and fax messaging, and much, much more. Plus, get your first month free with a minimum 3-phone system. Call Dependable Voice today at 1-888-346-1085 or visit them online at dependablevoice.com. That's dependablevoice.com. Dependable Voice.